Welcome to the Virtual Candidates Forum for the District 3 Governor's Council. The primary election will be held on Tuesday, September 6th, the day after Labor Day, and polls will be open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. My name is Jennifer Lynch, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Salem. I'll serve as your moderator today. This forum is co-sponsored by New TV and the League of Women Voters of the Acton area, Arlington, Bedford, Belmont, Boston, Cambridge, Brookline, Chelmsford, Concord, Carlisle, Harvard, Lexington, Newton, Sudbury, Waltham, Watertown, Wayland, Wellesley, and Weston. The League is responsible for communicating with candidates, organizing the format and questions, and providing the moderator and timekeeper. New TV's role is facilitating the production and dissemination of this forum. The forum is being recorded today, Tuesday, August 30th, and the video will be available by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, August 31st on local League websites and local cable access television stations. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, multi-issue grassroots organization that encourages citizens' informed and active participation in government. The League does not support or oppose candidates or political parties. No League members involved in this forum, including the planners, moderator, or timekeeper, are endorsing either of these candidates for office. There are 2 Democrats running for District 3 Governor's Council in this primary. There is no Republican primary for this office. All Democrats and unenrolled, unaffiliated registered voters may vote in this primary election. The League of Women Voters of Massachusetts has an online voter's guide that includes 5 questions answered by these candidates. You can find them by going to vote411.org under personalized voting information and putting in your address. Many of you may already know that the Governor's Council is the elected body that approves judicial appointments as written in our state's constitution. However, there are a number of other duties that the Governor's Council is charged with. To describe these duties, we have 2 Wellesley High School juniors, Sky Jacobs and Ivy Wang, who will present an overview of the office of Governor's Council. Ivy and Sky both serve as elected members of Wellesley's town meeting and volunteer with the League of Women Voters Wellesley Voter Services team. Ivy and Sky, we're ready for your presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Lynch, for the introduction. The Massachusetts Governor's Council, also known as the Executive Council, consists of the Lieutenant Governor and 8 elected members, 1 from each of the districts as shown here. District 3 spans from Billerica to Southborough to Wellesley. Each councillor serves a term of 2 years. Now I'm going to turn it over to Sky to introduce the history of the Governor's Council.
The council was established in the Massachusetts Bay Colony Charter of 1629, the original charter granted by King Charles I that gave the Massachusetts Bay Company permission from the English Crown to establish a colony in New England. Its primary objective was to assist the governor. At that time, members were elected by the colony's freemen, and the council decided judicial cases, plus played a role in lawmaking. After the original charter was dissolved, the Governor's Council took various forms under the short-lived Dominion of New England and the 1691 Massachusetts Charter, before finally reaching its modern form in the 1780 Massachusetts Constitution. Sometimes it acted solely as an advisory council, while other times it acted as a group of provincial judges or as the executive body in the absence of the governor. Its role during the American Revolution is especially notable. Because the state had no governor, the Governor's Council acted as the executive body in accordance with the 1691 Massachusetts Charter. Now I'll turn it back to Ivy to explain the responsibilities it has today.
The Governor's Council holds weekly meetings in the State House and is responsible for providing advice to the governor. Notably, the Governor's Council issued a report on capital punishment in 2004, which provided invaluable recommendations to then Governor Romney during the discussions surrounding the possibility of reinstating the death penalty during that time. The recommendations propose ways to greatly limit the use of capital punishment and ensure just and accurate procedures for the few cases that would occur. The council provides consent to an extensive number of gubernatorial appointments, including clerk magistrates, public administrators, members of the Appellate Tax Board, Industrial Accident Board, Industrial Accident Reviewing Board, notaries, and justices of the peace. Some of the most distinguished approvals that must be granted by the council are those for judges and members of the parole board. The council can approve or disapprove judges appointed by the governor, ensuring that the appointees are capable of responsible sentencing decisions, ordering pretrial detentions, and deciding the guilt of a defendant who waives a jury trial. The council also provides consent to parole board appointees, assuring that the board's members are committed to fairly granting or denying parole requests and setting adequate conditions the parolees must follow. In addition to the council's role in gubernatorial appointments, the council also provides advice and consent on warrants for the state treasury and can approve and disapprove pardons and commutations. The governor's council is essential for maintaining a checks and balance system with the governor that is elected by the people rather than appointed. Back to you, Ms. Lynch.
Thank you, Ivy. Thank you, Sky. And now we will get to the candidates. Now we'll meet the candidates for the District 3 Governor's Council. We have Marilyn Petito Devani, who has lived in Watertown her whole life and has been serving as a full-time governor's counselor for 22 years. And Mara Dolan is a public defender and has lived in Cambridge, Watertown, and Concord, where she currently resides. Let me explain the format of our forum. We will start with an opening statement from each candidate, which is limited to 1 minute. Then we'll pose questions that have been submitted in writing prior to the debate by members of the public. Questions will be addressed to both candidates and will apply to issues or qualifications for their particular office. We'll ask as many questions as time allows, sometimes combining similar questions, striving to cover a variety of topics. Each candidate will respond to questions with a limit of 1.5 minutes. I will decide if there is need for a rebuttal. Final closing statements will be limited to 1.5 minutes. All right, so we'll start with the opening statements, which will be 1 minute in duration. We're going in ballot order. So we're starting with you, Marilyn. 60 seconds on the clock, please. And go ahead.
Hello, I'm Marilyn Petito Devani, honored to serve as your governor's counselor, respectfully asking for your vote on September 6th to continue to work for you and be a voice on the council. I'm a full-time counselor, not a full-time lawyer. There are 6 lawyers out of 8 on the council. Lawyers on the governor's council by law are allowed to appear before the judges they voted on. No conflict of interest law. They vote for lawyer-friend nominees who appear before them. I have met with every nominee, parole board, industrial accident board, appellate tax board, clerk magistrate, judges, probably 1,000, attend every hearing. When I saw all prosecutors on the parole board, I changed it. When I saw counselors getting money from nominees when they applied, I had every governor in executive order prohibit nominees from giving money to governor's council, governor, lieutenant governor upon applying. Without my knowledge, when council's on the phone closed public access, I restored it. It's not always popular to do the right thing. Please see my endorsements from Congressman
Marilyn,
Peter Conclusion on my website. Reelect Marilyn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mara, 60 seconds to you, please.
Thank you so much to New TV and the League of Women Voters of Massachusetts for putting together this wonderful forum. Hi, I'm Mara Dolan. I'm a public defender, and I know judges matter. In a time when our federal courts are taking away our rights, we've got to make sure that our state courts uphold them. I'm a lawyer, I'm proud to be an attorney, and I deeply love my work. And it's an enormous asset to have an attorney, especially a public defender on the Governor's Council. Our judicial branch must reflect the will of the people the same way we want our legislative and executive branches to. But when you look at the status quo, you'll see we are falling very far short. We have the highest Latino incarceration rate in the country, and we incarcerate people of color at 7 to 9 times the rate of whites. There have been 475 applications for a commutation in the last 20 years. We've only allowed 3. Last year, Connecticut issued 1,045 pardons. We issued none. This year, we're up to 3, but only when you include a victim of the Salem witch trials. I'm asking for your vote September 6th for change.
Thank you both. All right, so we're going to turn to the questions now. We'll put 90 seconds on the clock, and we're going to start with you, Mara. The first question from our audience is, what is your motivation for running for governor's counselor?
I'm a public defender, and I know that judges matter. I mean, I've been a public defender for 15 years. I've worked in our Superior District in juvenile courts in places like Lawrence and Springfield and Worcester. And I know that no matter how much I do for my client, if they come before a judge who does not have the information that we want them to have, who does not share our values, then they're not going to get the justice that our law requires and intends for them to have. And I'll give you an example. I see people taken into custody all the time for relapse. And relapse is punishment enough for someone in recovery. Incarceration is expensive, it doesn't work, and it can actually make recovery harder. There was a lawsuit filed against our trial courts because there were judges in the drug courts who were prohibiting people from taking physician-prescribed medication aided to assist in recovery, like Vivitrol and Suboxone, and someone actually died. As your governor's counselor, I will make sure that all judicial nominees understand the science of addiction and work to support recovery. I'll also make sure that all nominees are pro-choice. The incumbent just voted to confirm an anti-choice justice to our superior courts. I'll also make sure that all nominees understand the science around brain development in children so that we're not treating 13-year-olds the way we're treating 35-year-olds. I'm running because I know we need to make a profound difference in our court system, the change that only an experienced public defender can provide. We've never had a full-time public defender on the Governor's Council, and it's time.
Thank you. Marilyn, we have the same question for you. What's your motivation for running?
First, the governor appoints all the commutation of pardons. Unfortunately, we don't, and they're not enough. My motivation goes back to when I first ran, and I want the best people that are judges and clerk magistrates and parole board. And I recently voted for the most qualified and compassionate person for the Superior Court judge. I received so many calls from clients that she represented pro bono. One abortion matter that goes before the Superior Court is minors. I asked if she had a 13-year-old before her seeking an abortion without parental advice, what would she do? She said she would recuse herself as it is against her belief. She is sworn to, and she said she's sworn to follow the rule of law of Massachusetts. She's honest, not a Trump-appointed judge. No qualified nominee should be rejected for speaking the truth based on religious belief. I started out as a governor's counselor because I had a friend that was in a bad situation, and she had a restraining order against her boyfriend. She feared for her life, and she had gone to court 7 times. The 8th time she went, we had a friend, a police officer, go before the judge and say, look, she fears for her life. You have to give him a $200,000 bail. Unfortunately, he was given a $200 bail, and my friend in fear paid for it.
Okay,
the judge
Marilyn,
turned to her and said, you're wasting my time and wasting the court.
Marilyn, that's time.
2 weeks later.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much. The next question is going to start with you, though, Marilyn. The next question is, what do you consider to be the most important function of a member of the Governor's Council?
I think it's full-time. This is not a part-time job. The people that we vote on affect you or someone in your family. And I have never missed a hearing, only once when my husband died in 2001. And I go out to the prisons. I go to drug courts. I go to parole board hearings. I think it's important. It's more than just coming in and taking a vote at a hearing. We have 6 out of 8 lawyers. I have no benefit to the judges I vote on, not personally, not professionally. And I think it's important to get the best people and to understand. I investigate. I meet with every nominee. In 23 years, I've met with every single one for 3 or 4 hours and investigate because we don't have any staff. Now, how do you do that when you have it as a part-time second job? It shouldn't be. And that's why I'm committed to it, because I go to drug courts. I go to so many things, visit people in the prisons. We just had 2 commutations and I visited both of them. It's racial disparity. I keep telling the governor, I keep saying it over and over to all of the nominees. These two men, 30 years ago, there wasn't one person of color in their trial. These are two Black men, lifetime prison without parole. I understand this job.
Thank you, Marilyn. I'm sorry. I'm afraid we're at time again. Yeah, I'm afraid we're at time again. Mara, the same question to you. What do you consider to be the most important function of a member of the Governor's Council?
Thank you. Well, first of all, one of the most important functions is for a governor's counselor to understand the duties of the governor's council and who's responsible for what. It is simply misinformation to say that the governor's council doesn't have anything to do with commutations and pardons and it's all up to the governor. That's not how it works. It's the parole board that recommends people for commutations and pardons, and it is the governor's council that has the final say on who our parole board members are. So this unconscionable record that I gave you earlier in this program on our record on commutations and pardons lies entirely at the feet of the governor's council. Second, I think that it's really important to understand the role of an attorney and the importance of understanding the law. The incumbent did vote to confirm an anti-choice judge, and now she's telling us that it doesn't matter because that person privately told her she would recuse herself on cases involving abortion. I'm sure you'll all recall when Brett Kavanaugh told Susan Collins that he wouldn't vote to overturn Roe versus Wade. That's not good enough, and I would have voted no. Furthermore, Councilor Terry Kennedy asked this nominee at an open hearing whether she would recuse herself, and she did not say that she would. So if she said it privately in conversation to one governor's counselor, but didn't say it in an open hearing, then I don't think that we can rely on that. I'm very proud of the work that I've done as an attorney, and I want you all to know you don't do the kind of work I do if you're out for personal gain. So the suggestion that if I, as an attorney, would have a conflict of interest, I would somehow vote in favor of personal gain is just completely off base.
Okay, thank you both. I'd like to just
rebuttal on that because she was not at the hearing. And that was not what she said.
Marilyn, just one moment. I would like the candidates to please focus on your own opinions and your policies and your direction for this position, and not direct comments or engagement with the other candidates.
On facts. Yep.
Okay, great. So we're going to move on to the third question. And if we'd like to, we'll see how this goes, but if we have time at the end, I can allow you to speak to anything that has been discussed earlier and before the closing statements. The next question is going to start with Mara. In what ways would you seek to improve the effectiveness of the Governor's Council?
I have a number of things I'm going to make sure that all nominees have. First, I'll make sure they're all pro-choice. Second, I'll make sure that they are all anti-racist. We have the highest Latino incarceration rate in the country. And we're locking up people of color at 7 to 9 times the rate of whites. These are not reflective of the values of our district. As your governor's counselor, I will make sure that all nominees are prepared to correct that terrible imbalance so that we can have a criminal justice system that does reflect our values, and it's something that we can be proud of. I'll also make sure that all nominees understand the science of addiction and will work to support recovery. As I told you earlier, I see far too many people taken into custody following relapse. It is deeply personal to me, as my own sister passed away from an alcohol use disorder. I'm very familiar with what families go through, with the cycles of relapse and recovery and how painful it is, and what works and what doesn't. We have far too many judges who simply do not understand. As I told you, we had judges in our drug courts who weren't even letting people take physician-prescribed medication that would have helped them in recovery, and someone actually died. And last, I'll make sure that all of our nominees understand and respect the science around brain development and child and youth development. We know now that the brain is not fully formed until you're 25. You simply can't be held to the same standards. And we've got to make sure that our judges are not treating 13-year-olds the way they would treat 35-year-olds. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. The same question to you. In what ways would you seek to improve the effectiveness of the Governor's Council?
I think the attendance, I think that counselors should be at every hearing from beginning to end. I think they should investigate. I think I meet with every nominee, but I think it's very important. I'm very concerned about the racial disparity in the court, and I talk publicly about it, and I ask every nominee their opinion. And I got endorsed by 3 sheriffs because of my commitment to criminal justice. Sheriff Peter Katosian and Steve Tompkins and retired Mike Bellotti from all of these regions. It's important. And the parole board, I worked very hard on it. When I first got elected, they were all prosecutors, and I worked so hard. And now this administration is ruining it. We have a few good people up there, but the last one was egregious that was reappointed. And that's the thing that I think that councilors, should think about who they're voting. It shouldn't be self-serving. I see so many political insiders becoming judges. I served with someone right on the council, and she was still elected, still sitting there, and she got a clerk magistrate job. I could go on about that. We have too many political appointments, and I'm not connected, and I have no way to benefit any way, professional or personal, with any of these judges or any of the other people. And I think that it's being, I can't say that this is not a part-time job. This is the most important body that is.
That's time, Marilyn. I'm sorry. I hate to cut you off again. We're going to move on. It's tough keeping to 90 seconds.
It is tough. I got too much to say.
We're going to start with you on the next question. It's what qualities or characteristics would you look for in a prospective judge?
First of all, to follow the rule of law. That's the thing of Massachusetts. I want someone who is qualified, not a political insider. I want someone who is experienced, someone who has pro bono, who has helped people, who has been out there helping people who can't afford to have a lawyer. Compassion, empathy. I won't vote for anyone if they don't have compassion or empathy. And they have to have compassion as a judge. I want that person that's disabled, that's going before the Industrial Accident Board, to have compassion so we can put food on the table. Appellate Tax Board. We want people that are experienced and understand. And so you as a citizen can go before them if you want to question your taxes in your, in your community. I just think that it needs 100% attendance. I mean, we got 21 lawyers that are appointed by the governor that are the Judicial Nominating Committee, and they choose who the judges and the clerk magistrate going to be. Clerk magistrate to the governor, and the governor gives it that person. I mean, do we have to have judges? We have to have lawyers there and lawyers on the council. I mean, we need people who are representing people. And I think that's what I bring to the council, because I am the only full-time, and I'm committed to this. And I think that's commitment, and that's what we need. But as far as all those qualities put together, I mean, that's what I look for. We have some judges that shouldn't be there, and we have wonderful judges, but we got a lot of political. We have more political administration.
Thank you very much. And Mara, for you, how will you, went to the next question there. What qualities and characteristics would you look for in a prospective judge?
I think that the incumbent raised some good points, but I would also add that, she says we need people who represent people. Well, that's what lawyers do. My clients are people. I've been representing people for 15 years in courts all across Massachusetts, and I understand those folks. And it's really important to have someone on the Governor's Council who understands those folks, who can give that perspective. The United States Supreme Court established the right to court-appointed counsel for people who cannot afford to hire their own attorney in 1963 with Gideon versus Wainwright. And since that time, we have had 51 governor's counselors. Not a single one has been a full-time public defender. I do think it's important to meet individually with every nominee, and of course I will do that. I also think it's important to have information sessions in the district, which other governor's counselors do, but our incumbent unfortunately does not. Those information sessions, folks learn about the work of the Governor's Council, and they also learn about the process for folks who are interested in judicial appointment. And some of the folks who've gone through those information sessions in other parts of the state with other governor's counselors are now judges. So that's something that I will bring that's very important. I do think it's very important to follow the law. My clients are not the elites. They don't have money. They don't have powerful connections. What they have is the rule of law. And our Massachusetts Declaration of Rights and United States Constitution guarantees equal protection under the law. I've been doing this for a long time. I know how judges work and how they think, and I'll make sure that all nominees will follow the rule of law and provide equal protection.
Thank you. We're going to ask this next question, and starting with Mara. How will you ensure a qualified and diverse judiciary in terms of both expertise and demographics?
That is a very, very important question. And I would like to say that the governor appoints a judicial nominating commission, and that's 21 people. And I would hope that whoever our next governor is selects a diverse body who is looking for diversity. We right now, the status quo of our judges in terms of the imbalance is quite severe. If you look at the ratio of former prosecutors versus former public defenders who are judges in our trial courts, it's 2-to-1. In our appeals court, it is just over 5-to-1. And on the Supreme Judicial Court, the highest court in Massachusetts, it is 4-to-1. I can tell you from my experience as a public defender that we have a very different perspective from prosecutors. We question evidence. We question the government's case in a way that prosecutors are never trained to do. And within the context of the confidentiality of the attorney-client relationship, we get to know our clients. We know their lives. We know how they think. And I can tell you that largely without exception, they're very astute. They know what their problems are. They know what causes their problems, and they know what they need to fix their problems. Our criminal justice system at its best helps people do that, helps them lead better lives. I see it happen all the time, and it is a joy. But we need to make sure it happens every time. And that's what I'll do as your governor's counselor.
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
The question is, how will you ensure a qualified and diverse judiciary? And again, let's both please focus on your own positions and policies.
That's what I want.
Reset the clock.
I think the problem starts with the 21 members. I have been very vocal about what 21 people are lawyers chosen by the governor, and they choose who's going to be chosen for to be appointed to a judge or a clerk magistrate. There has never been 21 of those people at a single hearing, 6, 8, 10, and yet they all vote. It's wrong. It's wrong. As far as diversity, I have just voted for the first Korean American woman on the Superior Court, 2 Indian women. First of all, cast historic votes on the Supreme Judicial Court, first majority of women. First African-American man, Justice Island. First American African woman, Chief Justice Budd. First Jewish American man, Chief Justice Gans. First openly gay, Justice Ling. First African-American woman, Justice Hines. I voted 3 times for her in Gans when they started out as lawyers. First Asian American woman, Justice Stockley. I'm very proud of my diversity record, but we need more. And we need more Asian, we need more Blacks. And that's what I have been always saying to the governor. And remember, it's the 21 lawyers that have the authority. The council only has 1 person that's presented, and we vote on that person. We don't know how many are presented, how many are rejected. And imagine 21 in this administration have never been there, and they're voting for a lifetime position.
Thank you, Marilyn. We're taking, the next question's taking a slight departure, and we're going to start with you, Marilyn. The Massachusetts Parole Board supervises parolees who may struggle with mental health or substance abuse. How can you ensure that parole board appointees have the qualifications and/or experience to service the needs of this population?
Oh, please, I can't tell you. I worked so hard to get the prosecutors off, and my council just voted for a state representative who has never been to a parole board hearing. He has never, even in 8 years as from Amesbury, he has never sponsored anything related to parole or criminal justice. Absolute disgrace. And they threw up Lee Gottenberg, specialist, and then we had she was from western part of the state. Wonderful. She was Puerto Rican. She spoke Spanish. She was appointed by 2 previous governors. And I can't believe that Lee was thrown off. He's ruining our parole board. We need people who have been social workers. We have 2 people now that are forensic specialists. That's what we need. We need people who can identify the problems of our and help them to provide for some kind of experience to go out into the world and to help them with their drug addicts, and all of them. This is so upsetting to me that I can't even talk, because the parole board he's ruining it. And that's all I can say, is that we need people in diverse, different, and that's why I change it from prosecutors. But for him to put on a state representative without anything related to it, or ever as a representative, it's just so upsetting. I can't even talk about it. The parole board is so.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, Marilyn. Mara, same question to you. How can you ensure that the parole board appointees have the qualifications or experience to service the needs?
Thank you so much for the question, but I first also want to just correct some misinformation about the Judicial Nominating Committee. There are 21 folks. The incumbent says they're never meeting at the same time. It's simply not true. They are using technology to meet, although they may not be in the same room. They are in fact meeting using technology just as we are today. These are folks who have full-time jobs, who have multiple responsibilities, and I just don't want to let that I do want to uphold the honor of the Judicial Nominating Committee. As to the parole board, it is very important that we make sure that folks have the background, education, experience, and training to serve well on the parole board. I was a social worker before I became a public defender. We've got to make sure that we have folks with a social science background who understand not only addiction, but also mental health issues, and are able to recognize when someone has been rehabilitated and is ready for a commutation. As I said earlier in the program, we've only allowed 3 out of 475 applications in the last 20 years. I do think it's very important that although the incumbent recognizes the problems with some of the nominees, she hasn't been able to work to build consensus among her colleagues. There was a column in the Boston Globe by Yvonne Abraham a couple of weeks ago, a week and a half ago, where several of her colleagues spoke quite candidly about the challenges of working with her. I'm a collaborator. I will stand alone on principle when I need to, but I know how to build consensus and work to make positive change, and that's what I'll do as your governor's counselor.
I'm
gonna allow a rebuttal for this, and then I would also.
First of all, I'm afraid that my opponent does not understand the JNC, the Judicial Nominating Commission. The chairman separates them. They're not listening. They're not on Zoom. They're all separated. Put 6, 8 in different rooms. So you have 21 people who are voting on a life position as a judge, clerk, magistrate, and they've never met that person. She is wrong. They are in separate rooms. They're not in Zoom. They're not on anything. They're in each separate room for each of the different nominees.
May I respond as well?
There's 30 more seconds, and then we're going to move on to the next question.
No, I already answered it, please. This is awful.
It's my turn to respond. I am simply relaying information that I have from people who know what they're talking about. And I did want to uphold the honor of the Judicial Nominating Commission and rebut the suggestion that they are somehow not doing their jobs. They are.
All right, moving on to the next question. And please, once again, focus on your own views on the position, your own plans for your time if you are elected to the position. The next question is, would you ever consider past members of the prison population who are now rehabilitated to serve in the role as a parole board appointee, starting with Mara and then going to Marilyn?
Absolutely. I think that's a wonderful idea. It's really important to have people who understand how things work on the inside, and someone who's been in prison and understands that could be the best person we ever had to serve in that capacity. That's my argument for putting a public defender on the governor's council. I'm working inside our court system and I understand the issues that we face there. That's why I was endorsed by the State Police Association of Massachusetts, which frankly surprised me because we're generally on opposite sides. But they know that it's better to have someone who understands the issues and is working there than someone who simply does not have that experience. So I think that's a fantastic idea and I'm very open to it. Thank you so much for that question.
That's my question.
Thank you, Mara. And Marilyn, same
question. I have made that suggestion. In fact, the last two for commutations would be absolutely wonderful. They understand the process, and to spend 30 years unfairly with a life sentence without parole? Absolutely. Who better can understand what the needs are and what they need to go out? I have gone to Roxbury. I met with Black former inmates. They can't get housing. They can't get jobs because of the prejudice there. There's so much more that we need to be on the parole board to understand what people are going through and when they are released. But absolutely, I have said it over and over through the years, and I hope it will come to bear. Again, I don't make the appointments to the parole board. I only vote on them. And I'm not happy with this administration.
Thank you very much. This next question is something that has been touched upon a couple of times, and we're going to start with Marilyn. The Governor's Council is charged with approving or disapproving pardons and commutations. What considerations do you think are important when reviewing and granting or denying pardons and commutations?
I think you have to look at the history of the person and how they have rehabilitated themselves, and are they prepared to go out in society? About 10 years ago were the only time that I did vote no, and I voted against a commutation that was recommended by the district attorney who was representing the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I thought she could use a little more time, and she didn't have any work skills. And they said that she would be in a setting, not in jail, that would do that. Now, the pardon was for a man who had violent crimes, not only in Massachusetts, but in New Hampshire. And the New Hampshire Governor's Council voted no. And under Mass General Law 125, Section 9, that he was approved by the Massachusetts Governor's Council, but it requires to have both, and he didn't have New Hampshire, but he was released. So hopefully they went on with their lives and did well, but that's what you have to go on. You have to go by the people who are involved, the people working for them, the officials, and that's it. But I have voted for every single one. And, that's probably almost 10 years ago. But I just think that we have to look at and be reasonable. It could be a violent crime, but you got to realize, what did that person grow up with? I spent a year volunteering with
I'm going to have to stop you again.
I'm traumatized.
All right, Mara, same question. Do you need me to repeat it?
No, that's okay. Thank you so much. It's a wonderful question. I do think that my experience of 15 years as a public defender, working with people from, Lawrence and Worcester and Springfield, and working with the indigent, has given me great insights. And I'm a pretty good judge of character. You do need to look at whether the state of someone's recovery and their intentions, their circumstances, their support network, all those things go into whether or not, if they were released, they would be able to continue to lead the life that they plan to lead. But I just want to say, it isn't an attack to point out your opponent's record. That's part of the campaigning process. And voters have a right to know what the incumbent's record is. She had 2 votes that I strenuously disagree with. She voted no on a commutation for a woman named Deanna Hamilton, who had a very difficult childhood with a lot of abuse, became involved in drugs, became involved with a man who was involved with drugs, and was convicted of a non-violent drug crime and sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. When she applied for a commutation, she was rehabilitated. Her lawyer said she'd never seen anyone work so hard to deal with her underlying issues. The incumbent voted no. Fortunately, there were enough votes that she was able to get that commutation, and today she's doing beautifully. There's another case I'll quickly tell you about, Thomas Schoolcraft. He committed a series of breakings and enterings as a youth. He was never never did time. He rehabilitated himself, got a GED, a master's in criminal justice, wanted to work with the people he worked with, couldn't get a job because he had a conviction. He applied for a pardon. The incumbent said no. Fortunately, he got it, and he's doing beautifully today.
Great, thank you. We're going to go on to the next question.
Can I have a rebuttal?
I'll give time at the end so we can.
No, it'd be too late. It's just that, I stand by those 2, and okay. I'm glad that it worked.
We're going to move on to the next question. This one's starting with Mara. As a member of the Governor's Council that reviews appointments to the Appellate Tax Board, what qualifications of the candidates do you think are most important?
expertise on our tax law, which frankly I don't have. I'm a public defender. I don't do tax law, but I do recognize folks who have areas of expertise outside of mine. So they've got to have that. They have to have demonstrated good character. I would look at their record, the work that they've done. And I think it's important when you're looking at the Appellate Tax Board that you're making sure that nominees have a fair notion about taxes. I know the Fair Share Amendment is on the ballot this year. I support the Fair Share Amendment because I believe in fair taxation. So it's got to be, whoever is nominated for the Appellate Tax Board has got to be committed to fair taxation and to making sure that we have someone who has the expertise and the character that we need, which gives me a wonderful opportunity to talk about judicial temperament, which I think is another very important quality. I've seen judges, any practicing attorney has seen judges who yell at lawyers and yell at defendants and yell at prosecutors. It's very damaging to our court system and to the people who appear before it. So whether someone is a nominee for the Appellate Tax Board or any other court, I will make sure that they have judicial temperament. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Same question. Would you like me to repeat it?
Most important, the Appellate Tax Board. And I'm going to tell you what happened. We had the most qualified, because you have to look at the background. You have to look at their job experience, if they know tax laws. We had the most wonderful experience, was a mentor on the Appellate Tax Board, serving 30 years. You know what he did the first time he was appointed? He took on the telephone company, and he sued them and won that they pay for the lines in the poles throughout Massachusetts. Can you imagine? He was a mentor, 30 years, and this governor threw him out when 5 previous governors appointed him. And for what? And he appointed someone, no experience. And when I talked to her, I said to her, she was about 73, and I said to her, you've been a lawyer a long time. How many times have you been before the Appellate Tax Board? Once in 1991. They replaced the most wonderful, working hard, and imagine that, he beat the phone company. And so the whole board was upset. And this is the problem. We've got people that are appointed, and they're voted by the council. This council has never voted no on a judge. It's got to stop. So I'm saying, look at those people that have served, that have been thrown off these boards. I don't have time to tell you all of them, and it's wrong, and it's all political. It's an inside job.
Thank you, Marilyn. The next question is, starting with you, Marilyn. How would you resolve conflicts with the governor regarding issues or personnel?
We don't get involved in personnel, only the personnel that are on the parole board and those, if you mean those. But I mean, as far as employees, no, we don't. In fact, well, I am supporting a union in the State House, so I don't know whether I'm on the opposite side of that for the workers. But it's an important thing that we have the right people on these boards. And I have talked to, I have fought, I tried to get these people to be returned to the Appellate Tax Board, to the Parole Board, with it's of no use. So I'm hoping with the new governor coming in, there'll be a compassion, there'll be caring, and it won't throw off someone for a political person, for someone that coaches the lieutenant's kid or something. I'm very upset with this administration because we've lost so many good people that are so qualified. And that's all I can say is that we have we have one thing, we could vote no, but unfortunately, I'm alone a lot of times voting no on someone that's going to the parole board that's not qualified or whatever. But when we lose these good people that are so qualified on the Appellate Tax Board, the Industrial Accident Board, it's wrong. And so I'm looking for a change with the JNC, and that all 21 of them will interview and not be separated in rooms interviewing.
All right, Marilyn, that's time. All right, Mara, same question, and I'm going to clarify. Thank you, Marilyn. Personnel, I do believe, means the appointees. So how would you resolve conflict with the governor regarding issues or personnel personnel?
Thank you so much. That's a wonderful question. You know, I'm an attorney. I don't play one on TV. I'm one in real life. And I think a lot of people don't know because they see how attorneys are depicted in television and the movies as being combative and there's constantly high drama. That's not the way it is in practice at all. We are responsible, respectable, civilized professionals, and we know how to have reasonable conversations and how to resolve disagreements. So I'm very confident in my ability to resolve conflicts, to work well with the other governor's counselors, and to resolve whatever conflicts might arise with the governor. I mean, I expect the next governor of Massachusetts to be Maura Healey, and I know that she's very good and very reasonable. So I don't anticipate problems with that. Look, my job is to vote no when a nominee isn't qualified, when they don't have the criteria that I've told you I require in order to vote yes. And I am no stranger to standing alone on principle. I will vote no all by myself if that's the right thing to do. But before we get to that point, it's really important that we have a governor's counselor who is able to build consensus, to find agreement, and so that we move our judicial system, our court system in the right direction and away from the unconscionable imbalance that I've been telling you all about. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. I think we probably have time for a couple of more. So this one will start with you, Mara. Are you in favor of live streaming the governor council meetings? If so, what steps will you take to move this forward? If you're not in favor of live streaming the council meetings, please explain why and what you will do to make the council's work more transparent.
I am completely in favor of live streaming the governor's council meetings, and I encourage people to attend meetings in person. But for those of us who can't get into the State House, they should be able to access hearings virtually and easily. I know one of the issues is that right now they're on YouTube, and I know from having worked in the State House that there is a separate system that our government uses, that the governor uses, that the legislature uses, that is more secure than YouTube. So my hope, and also I'm concerned about other things that are on YouTube platform. I'm not sure that we should be using YouTube. We should have a secure government stream, which we already have for the legislature and for the governor's office. So I'm all in favor of it. I don't think anyone is opposed to it. So no reason why we can't do that.
Thank you. Marilyn, same question. Do you need me to repeat it?
No, all the councils were opposed to it. What happened was that the legislators closed the State House for 2.5 years during the pandemic, and we were meeting every week. And someone in the governor's office, I was so pleased, was streaming it out on YouTube so the people could finally see who the governor was appointing and seeing how we voted and seeing the nominee. So in March, it was open, the State House. And without my knowing it, my 7 other councilors on the phone voted on the phone and closed access. I was so upset. I didn't know anything about it. And I made a motion at public assembly to reopen it. I didn't get a second. Not one councilor accepted it to open it up. So I worked hard for almost 2 months. And thanks to the ACLU of Massachusetts, MassPIRG, the New England First Amendment Coalition, Common Cause, Disability Law Center, League of Women Voters, and so many others who helped me. I couldn't have done it alone. So this is why the council are not happy with me, because I don't go along. I believe in the people's right to know who the governor is appointing. Everyone that we vote for affects you or your family. And imagine, I couldn't even get a second to even talk about it. So I thank all those organizations. Of course, we should have open. I served on the Commission of Disabilities for 22 years. I was especially happy that they could finally see it. And people don't even know what's going on, and now they do. And no, 7 councils were against it.
This is the final question, I think, and then we'll have 1 minute to expand on any of the answers that you were asked previously, if you'd like. And then we'll move on after that to closing. So the final question is, if you were to write a job description for the governor's counselor position, what skills and experience would you require for those seeking the position? Marilyn, we'll start with you. It's kind of.
What is it? What qualifications for a governor's counselor?
Yep. If you just kind of reinforce what, like if you were writing the job description, what skills and experience?
I think it has to be someone that's going to give 100% attention to this. Someone that is going to understand what what a judge does and what all of these appointments do. When I first was elected, I didn't know at first, and when my friend was in danger and wasn't getting any help in the court, and the judge said, "You're wasting our time, you're wasting the court's time," and she was murdered 2 weeks ago, I found out what the governor's council does. And I said, there'll never be a judge like that on my term. And that's why I think it's dedication, commitment. I learn every day. I do it every day. I know the job. And I think it has to be not all lawyers. We've got 21 lawyers on the Judicial Nominating Committee. We've got 6 out of the 8. And I believe one of them was a public defender in the past. But I'm just saying that it's dedication, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You just want to commit 100% to this, and I do, and it's full time, and you have to be willing to meet with everybody and to investigate, because we have no staff. So you got to look in to see about this person, not just the person who's sending letters recommending. It's more than just going to a hearing and voting. It's not a nice little second job. So I think all of those things you have to prepare before you vote. Before you run for it, you have to know what the responsibilities are.
Thank you. Thank you. And Amara, just closing it out, if you were to write a job description for this position, what skills and experience would you require?
Thank you so much. It's a wonderful question. Well, the Governor's Council has the final say in who our judges are, who our parole board members are, and who gets a commutation or a pardon. Massachusetts is wise in not choosing a system where we elect our judges, but we do elect the people who have the final say. So it's really important that we have someone who understands judges, who has experience with judges, who works in our court system. The Governor's Council is overseeing a branch of our government, the judicial branch. It is critically important that they understand that judicial branch, which I do. Second, they've got to be a really good judge of character. These are people who are going to have an enormous amount of power, so we've got to make sure that they have the character, the values, and the temperament that we need them to have. Knowledge of the law is critical. The devil is in the details, as they say. It's really important that someone understand what our law is and how it works, so that if an issue comes up, they can put it in the right context right away. And last, and most importantly, they have to have a commitment to justice. That's the single most important thing. And not only justice, equal justice under the law. We do not at present have equal justice under the law, which I believe the people of this district long for. It isn't enough to decry what's wrong. We need someone who will go in and know how to fix it and make it better. I'll do that as your governor's counselor.
Thank you. All right, so we did cover a lot of ground. If there was any policy or plan or issue or topic that you would like to expand on, I'll give you 30 seconds before we move on to closing statements. Mara, we'll start with you.
Thank you so much. I'd love an opportunity to talk a little bit more about what's happening in our court system with the opiate crisis. Last year, Massachusetts had record opiate overdoses and deaths, despite a lot of work by a lot of good people. We are not getting better, we are getting worse. And we've got to look at the role our court system plays. Many people go through our court system who are suffering from a substance use disorder. We are not giving them the response that they need in order to get better, and we can. So let's do that.
Thank you. And Marilyn?
Well, I think a lot of judges are not understanding about opioids and drug addiction, but they're not aware of mental issues too that I'm very concerned about. So that's something that the Governor's Council can't do, but what they can do is make sure when I meet 3 and 4 hours with these people, I ask them about mental issues and drug addictions and opiates, all of that, because I want to know that they are understanding, and they're also understanding of gays and transgenders, and they have to understand that what is happening in our society and how people are being discriminated against.
Thank you, Marilyn. And now we're going to go to closing statements. Please focus your closing statements on your own policies and plans. Refrain from engaging or discussing your opponent, since there will not be an opportunity for rebuttal. Each candidate is going to have 1.5 minutes, and we are reversing the order that we started with. So Mara will be given 90 seconds, and then Marilyn, you will close it out.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Mara Dolan. I'm a public defender, and I know judges matter. And look, we've got a federal court system that is taking away our rights. It happened with Roe versus Wade, and you know they're going to keep trying to take away our rights. It is essential that our state courts uphold our rights. It is essential that we have a governor's counselor who understands the law, understands our court system and the issues that we face there, so that we can be proactive in addressing this and correcting the terrible imbalance. The people you trust me. I've been endorsed by U.S. Representative Seth Moulton, State Auditor Suzanne Bump, former State Treasurer Steve Grossman, State Senators Mike Barrett, Will Brownsberger, Cindy Friedman, about 10 state reps, Alice Peisch, Tom Stanley, Dave Rogers. The list is long. The Young Democrats of Massachusetts, the Progressive Democrats of Massachusetts, Our Revolution in Cambridge, Arlington, Concord, and Metro West, the State Police Association of Massachusetts. They know that we need representation on the Governor's Council by someone who will reflect our values and make our judicial branch of government as responsive to the will of the people as our legislature and as our executive branch are intended to be. As your governor's counselor, I will make sure that all nominees are pro-choice, anti-racist, understand the science of addiction, and will work to support recovery. I ask for your vote on September 6th. Mara Dolan, thank you so much.
Thank you. Marilyn, closing
We
statement.
have the same position on the side of the rule of law. I want to say that. I am grateful for you people in believing in me and not believing in negative twisting of my record or truth. Among those standing with me, Congressman James McGovern, Congressman Stephen Lynch, retired Congressman Michael Capuano, former Attorney General Frank Bellotti, Sheriff Peter Katusian, Sheriff Stephen Tompkins, Sheriff Bellotti, Representative Kevin Honan, Representative Carmen Gentile, Newton Councilor Emily Norton, Waltham Councilor Pat O'Brien, Watertown Councilors Picciarelli and Palumbo, professional firefighters of Massachusetts, NAGE, Newton Carpenters, Boston Commons Union. There's so many more. Please see my website, reelectmaryland.net, and you'll see my record and you'll see my endorsements. I want to continue to be your voice on the council, to go to parole board hearings, every council hearing, drug courts, prisons, to continue to be a full-time counselor. It's too important. I know the job. I work it every day. And I thank you for your past support. And I respectfully ask for your vote on September 6th to allow me to continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you both. I'd like to thank both of our candidates, Marilyn Petito-Devaney and Mara Dolan, for running for office and for participating in this forum. I also want to thank New TV and the local leagues of women voters in District 3 for providing this opportunity for candidates to make themselves known. A special thanks to Ivy Wang and Sky Jacobs for their presentation, and to Mary Mason Crowley for keeping excellent time. And finally, thank you to the audience for all of the questions you sent in. A few announcements. Please let me remind the audience that both of these candidates are running for District 3 Governor's Council. All voters with a Democratic ballot in District 3 may vote for one of these two candidates. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you will not be able to get to the polls on Tuesday, September 6th, you can vote absentee or early, by mail or in person. For further information, contact your local election commission. If you don't know where your polling place is, you can contact your local election commission or visit the Massachusetts government website at www.sec.state.ma.us. On the elections page, you can verify your polling location. Be sure to visit vote411.org to see the voter's guide from the League of Women Voters of Massachusetts. Input your address and see responses to questions from candidates for all the races on your ballot. You can also see this virtual candidates forum for the 3rd District Governor's Council seat on local league websites, on local cable access stations, on New TV, and at newtv.org. Today's forum is a co-production of New TV and the League of Women Voters. Any use or reuse of this program requires the approval of New TV and the League and must be shown in its entirety without any editing, only after the program initially airs on the League websites, local cable access stations, and New TV. I'm Jennifer Lynch for the League of Women Voters, and I thank you for watching. Participate in our elections, and remember, democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you again. Take care.